Hello, hello, and welcome. I do apologize that so many of you guys have had a hard time finding us tonight. Our restream link went somewhere else, and we are having trouble getting everybody in. So, what I am going to do is go ahead and send out the link one more time to everybody. If you guys could just give me just a second so that we can find everyone in the right place. Um, so tonight, for some reason, we're in a new studio. We had a hard time going live, but I am going to help everyone get into the right place. So I'm going to Copy this link. Hi there. Oh, yes, I am feeling better. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but I am going to get a couple of links to our Facebook page, to the stream tonight for those who are having a hard time finding us. Oh, you're finally getting it. Okay, thank you so much, Peggy. I was worried about you. And guys, we had about 30 people registered for this training tonight. So I am trying to make sure that everyone ends up in a place. I know if you go to our main page at the very top, it'll bring down the live since we're live on our page. And so hopefully everyone can land where we are. But welcome, guys, so much. And I apologize for the technical difficulties. So I was down last week. I know a lot of your schools have been under attack with strep and my throat. I could barely even talk. I was coughing and had no voice. So definitely I couldn't bring any lives to you guys last week, but we are back and I am super excited. So we are in a new studio. You guys don't see my normal black background. And so we kind of upgraded to a studio where we could bring you guys more hands-on trainings, not just the podcast that we're doing or the hot topics that we're doing. And so I'm going to get into that at the end of the training and tell you guys what amazing things we have coming up. But I do have a little bit of a different background going on here, and it is just white, and it's just not me because I am that colorful person that likes to pop out everywhere. But once again, guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. And we're going to go ahead and dive right into our hot topics. Let's get this started. All right, so all about our hot topics. Many of you guys have been here with us before, but we have a lot of new friends that are joining us for this hot topic, and I want to tell you guys how the hot topic works. So you'd come to the hot topic for free and pick up as much information that you can to take back to your staff, to take back to your co-workers, to use in your classroom. And we do these hot topics typically on Tuesdays. If I have to reschedule, sometimes they're on a Thursday or a Friday. But I try to bring these hot topics at least once a week to kind of address some of the things that are going on in the early childhood field. I do right now leave them on our page for a replay so that you guys can come back and watch them as a staff meeting, can share with your colleagues. Maybe they need to watch it later and they're not available to go live. After you finish the hot topic, I usually put a link in the hot topic with the link to taking the hot topic quiz where you get 2 clock hours. It is $7 for the 2 clock hours. Now that we're transitioning from posting everything in the link, everyone who registers will get an email from now on with the replay link, the quiz link, so that you guys can take those quizzes and get your clock hours at any point with the replay. Now, let's just say you don't pass the quiz the first time or the second time. You can retake it. It's only like 5 or 6 questions, and usually we talk about those things in the hot topics. And so I take different points that I make in the hot topics and turn them into a quiz. You take the quiz, and then you are able to get your clock hours. So do wait for that email to come to you post training. I usually try to get them out on Wednesday or Thursday, so that you guys can take the quiz and go from there. So if you have any questions about hot topics, feel free to inbox me or email me, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. All right, so our topic tonight, we are talking about tackling tantrums. Tantrums, tantrums, tantrums. So I know you guys see them at all ages. You see them starting at the toddler age. Sometimes our infants are already having tantrums, all the way up to the adult phase. Yes, adults have tantrums as well. So, what we're going to dive in tonight is to really take a closer look on what we can do as the early childhood provider to reduce tantrums once they're already in effect and try to stop them from happening time and time and time again. As you guys know, teachers as well as kids throw tantrums sometimes. It is a fit of rage whenever typically they can't have their way or they can't express or they can't communicate how they're feeling in that moment. And so instead of, saying I feel this way or I'm acting this way because I'm mad or upset, they scream, they throw themselves down. Some adults end up in road rage because they cannot properly communicate that they're upset and they're angry. Even so much as rage, not just road rage, but people end up shooting people and fighting. And so these are tantrums at their highest stake. And so if we don't start tackling some of those things now in the early childhood, these are the type of adults that are going to be in the world. So a lot of times people are like, oh, tantrums only last for two, we're just going to ignore it. But if you ignore it, it is going to escalate. And as the child gets older and older, they're not going to know how to communicate their feelings, and the tantrums are just going to get worse and worse and worse. And so long are the days of people saying, oh, they'll get over it, oh, they'll grow out of it. No, they will not. It will actually get worse over time. So today I'm going to give you guys 6 tips to tackling tantrums. And so we're going to go over these 6 things that you as early childhood providers can do in your classroom. Now, I am going to say my disclosure of these 6 things is that everything doesn't work for every child, because there are certain situations that lead to that leads to tantrums, and I am going to address some of those. And so in a perfect scenario, these 6 tips would work, but there are some times where children have different needs, or they have special needs that need to be taken care of before you can even address the tantrum. Anywhere from communication delays, social emotional delays, and cognitive delays in young children can also lead to tantrums. And so we are talking about the typical child, not the atypical child, in which I am going to give some tips at the end for atypical children. So many of you guys have known me for some times know that my specialty is in children with behavioral issues, because I work my first encounter with young children were children who had autism. And so that is my specialty. I've done a lot of research with dealing with children with these behavioral issues. And so children with autism have social delays as well as some communication delays, but mainly the social part of it. So those tantrums and fits do exist amongst children who have autism. Whenever I started my career, I was put in a special education classroom, and I was one of those teachers that they gave all the problematic kids to, even though I wasn't even fully certified as of yet as a special needs teacher. I use tactics that not only from my classroom, but from working with children and seeing the effects of my attitude and my personality on their tantrum. And so once I was able to master controlling tantrums and controlling fits or stimming with children with autism, I went into the preschool setting, and I noticed that some of those same ABA or some of those same adaptive behavior tips work with children who did not have special needs. And it was really interesting how much time we spent on giving children with special needs communication skills, social skills, emotional skills. But yet, the typical child in the early childhood classroom did not get that unless they were getting some type of special needs service. And so, whenever I started doing early childhood training, I started using some of those same things that I use with my children with special needs with just typical kids, and it actually worked. So it is just so funny how when a child displays those needs, we want to pour these skills into them instead of giving all children those skills that they need to be able to cope and communicate instead of having tantrums. So I know a lot of you guys are going to be in the chat asking questions about specific things that are going on in your classroom, and I'm going to be more than happy to address them and answer them at the end. So even if something pops into your head right now and you're like, "Oh my God, I want to ask this," it's right here. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat or in the comment section, and I am going to flag them and answer them all at the end of our hot topic. So, The first tip that I'm going to tell you in an early childhood environment when you're dealing with children that are having tantrums is stay calm. All right. Remember that you set the weather in your classroom. And so when a lot of children with autism and children with typical behaviors through tantrums and they see it did not move me and I stay consistent in my attitude even though my blood was boiling. I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh no, I was fine with them having a tantrum." No, I was not. I was bothered. Why? Because of the way I grew up. And many of you can relate to this. It was just not tolerated by my mom to have a tantrum. I mean, she was not having it. First of all, I was not going to go there by the look on her face. I don't even want to find out what's going to happen. And so a lot of us grew up in environments where we're like, kids are not supposed to act like that, from being spanked to being punished to that look that your mom gave you. You knew not to throw a tantrum. And so a lot of us have that thought in our head, and so our blood starts to boil whenever a child starts throwing a tantrum because it was deemed that that was unacceptable. And you're like, where did they get this from? That is not okay. Why is this even tolerated? And so we get so upset that that child sees that that's firing you up and making you upset. So that tantrum has drawn that attention in and they've gotten exactly what they wanted. I've been so calm. I've counted to myself 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to calm myself down because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if they just got a good spanking at home, they wouldn't act like this. And that was not true. They were still going to act that way. It was up to me to be able to control my environment and stay calm at that time. So, some calming techniques that I did is I would count. I would turn around and turn my attention away from the child and look at the wall of the door or take a deep breath before I started to address that child. Why? Because I don't want that anger and that animosity or the fact that they just threw off the whole schedule or threw off the whole day to interfere with my interaction with that child. I always told myself, you set the weather. If you start acting like a hurricane, they are going to receive you like a hurricane. They're going to be on the defense and they're going to be upset as well. So a lot of you need to take the time to just reflect and take a deep breath and just stay calm. Stay calm because in our minds, these kids are small people, right? We can set that environment up. And I'm not saying as an early childhood, because mind you, I'm not speaking to you as an expert that has never worked with 2 year olds, 3 year olds, that has never been bitten, that has never been spit on, that has never been kicked. I have gone through all those things. And what I had to learn to do was understand the power in staying calm. Get getting myself together before I actually dealt with that child. So, if you are working with kids and it is in the midst of a tantrum, do not pour gasoline on that fire with your attitude. Take a deep breath, calm down, wait till they calm down as well before you go in and try to correct the behavior. Because right now, we're not even dealing with the behavior, except we're dealing with the repercussions of it, the actions. Usually because you told them something, they don't want to transition, or they have an issue with something. That is one of the main reasons why kids throw tantrums. And so I am going to ask you guys that every time a kid throw a tantrum, before you address them or address anything, take a deep breath, be calm. And then what I used to do is to give myself a little bit of time. I would say, okay, friends, I need for you guys to get into your centers or sit, catch a bubble, and allow Miss Carolyn to help one of your friends. One of your friends is having a hard time and I need to go and help them. And so that gave me that transition space to be able to calm down, address the other kids before I started to address the situation that was at hand. So if you can remember just a few of those tips, it will help diffuse some of the situation anyway. All right. So after you stay calm and take that deep breath. Then we're going to go on to number 2, find the cause. A lot of times we don't even know why the child is having a tantrum. It could be for a number of reasons. It could be something else that you didn't even say. They got triggered by another situation. Sometimes kids throw tantrums at the same time of the day because they're hungry. Have you ever had a hunger fit before? I have. I know that every time I don't get my snacks in, my good old snacks, someone tries to talk to me, I'm a little bit snappy. What do you want? And what's wrong with you? I'm hungry. And so sometimes kids have those same exact reactions to being hungry and not being fed. Sometimes it's because they just can't have their way, and that has worked before. So they throw tantrums at home, and mom or dad give them that toy or give them what they want to kind of get them quiet or keep them quiet. So, you have to get to the cause. Why is this child throwing a tantrum? And so that is usually the antecedent to the behavior. That is the why behind it. And a lot of people are like, they're just throwing a tantrum for no reason at all. No, they have a reason. You just have to find out what that reason is. And so when dealing with 2-year-olds, a lot of times the very reason why they are throwing a tantrum is because they are asserting their independence. They are figuring out that autonomy, and they just want to use their power of no. They want some type of control in the situation. And so it's like, goodness gracious, all you do is tell me what to do. You tell me what center to go to. You tell me what toys to play with. And now I have had enough and I am done. And the only way I can get that across to you is by throwing myself on the floor and having a tantrum, because I feel that that works. And if that tantrum was empowered before, they're going to use it time and time and time again. So, with most of our toddlers and twos who are throwing these big tantrums, they just want to show you that they're mad, and they want control. They don't want to be told no. As the kid gets older into their threes and the fours, they use it as a control mechanism as well. But by this age, they're just showing you that they're upset. They're mad and they can't have their way. Some of them will stomp and say no. Some of them will freeze up and stiff up and fall back. Some of them will scream in your face. Why? Because they have not learned what we're going to talk about in just a few minutes about controlling their anger, controlling their ability to communicate, and all those things. So, if we go to the very core of why, it is just simply because they want to communicate something to you, they want to tell you something, and they've gotten away with it time after time. And so, a lot of times we cause tantrums. I have watched teachers like have a kid that is like mad. They're just sitting there and they're stiff and they're like, oh no, you better go sit down. And they're just poking, 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 poking. No, you better fix your face. You better stop all that screaming. Why are you mad? You don't have a right to be mad. Do I sound like some of those teachers that are out there? Get your act together. And so instead of just giving the directive, letting the child react, addressing the reaction after they calm down, they keep going and going and going and going and going and going like the Energizer battery. And that is why the kid ends up screaming and throwing stuff and throwing themselves down. Or what they do is that they don't address it, and then they try to walk over it, and the kid wants the attention. They want to see it, so they'll pick up something or knock something over so that they can get that attention that they want. So you have to really analyze your tantrum thrower. And I have had some of the worst ones. I've had ones that threw it because I walked away and they wanted to get my attention. And so what I would do is just look at them and give them that attention, and it kind of helped calm them down a little bit. Then it was some who they weren't going to throw attention. They was just mad and they needed to get over it, and they needed me to talk to them calm and help them get over it. And then we went on to the next step. But then they would go to another teacher, and that teacher kept just like poking them, like poking the bear. And then eventually that kid would explode because they're just so tired of saying the same thing. And sometimes I have to check myself as a mom, because my daughters, they're like, I'm like, don't do that again. And then they're like, okay, mom, that's all you have to say is okay, mom. I mean, like, what do you want me to say? What do you mean what I want you to say? It's like I'm just like going and going and going and going. And it's like all you have to do is tell them what you want, explain it and go on to the next step. But instead, we start lighting that fire because we're upset in the inside about the situation. And so we are taking that anger out on a child. And then we get upset when they throw a full tantrum. It's like, why are you mad that they threw a full tantrum? What were you doing leading up to that tantrum? A lot of times it's not just the child that's causing a tantrum. We as educators need to reflect and ask ourselves, are we the one starting the fight? Are we the one pouring gasoline on the fire? Is that the cause of the full out tantrum? And I'm not saying that's the case all the time, because we have some kids that are so bright these days that they can conjure up stuff in their mind and, like, you know what, every time I get mad, I'm going to do this because that has worked for me, or I don't care, or it doesn't matter, especially when you start getting into the fours and fives and six that are throwing tantrums. They don't care. They just want to let you know that they're mad. And most of the time they want to be thrown out of the classroom. They don't want to deal with you. Or they don't even know how to express. So they just lock up and scream and when they're upset. And a lot of times that can be redirected if we get to the core of why they are upset. Number three, redirect attention. So, a lot of times with these tantrums, kids get a show. And so we put the attention directly on them. And I make a clear point not to focus on the fact that they're having a tantrum. I address the kids to keep them busy. And sometimes I will redirect the attention of the child who was actually having the tantrum. Hey, are you oh, okay, do you want to come over here and do this activity? Oh, I see that you've calmed down. You want to come join us now? And I'm redirecting that anger, especially after they've fallen on the floor and started screaming. I'm not going to talk while they're screaming because they're not going to hear me. I'll say, okay, when you're done, I'll be waiting for you. Hey, how about you come over here and help me with this activity? Do you want to help me pour some waters? Pour some water. Even some kids, I'll be like, hey, you want to go wash your hands real quick to get your hands clean for this activity? And so sometimes redirecting their attention is great. But what usually happens during that tantrum, the teacher is so upset that her attention can't be redirected. So she's focused on that child, when really she needs to redirect her attention so that she can redirect the child's attention to the next activity. It's a really cool art. And a lot of kids' attention span is like that big, and it don't take much to distract them. They'll even forget why they're mad. All you have to do is give them something or go, oh, let's go over here. And they'll be like, oh, what just happened? She didn't, okay. And so they'll just go on to the next thing. The younger they are, the easier they are to persuade into something different. And so I've even done this with the 4-year-old. So my private kindergarten class a couple of years ago, I had a kid that I used to say intentionally come and stir the pot. He just seemed like he made up his mind, like, I'm gonna come to school and give everybody a hard time today. Sometimes his mom would ask him, are you gonna have a good day? He was like, no, I'm not gonna have a good day because I didn't want to come to school today. And he made sure that I was not gonna have a good day, or that he was gonna attempt to not have a good day. And so I started using a lot of my own techniques on myself. And so I had to stay calm because I knew sometimes that he would intentionally try to do things to make us upset. I would get to the bottom of why he thought that he was going to have a bad day. And sometimes he would be like, well, because I didn't sleep well last night, or I'm tired, or I don't want to do any work today. And I would, before the tantrums would start, I was like, hey, do you want to go ahead and, sit over here? Or if I noticed that he was a little irritable or kind of like being that sneaky mischievous, I would redirect him and give something else for him to do. But every once in a while, I didn't get to him quick enough, and then the attitude or the tantrums would start. So for example, we're getting ready to go outside, and I'm like, okay, this friend come and line up, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna go outside. He would just sit there. No, I'm not going outside today. And knowing you can't leave the kids in the classroom, I can't leave him. So what I would do was say, okay, friends, we are going to go outside, but we need to go and do this first. And I would redirect the kids to the other side. And I would say, hey, do you want to come and help me? I'll let you push the buggy or carry the bag. And so I would kind of redirect what was going on and restructure the kid. And I wasn't just bent on, oh, we have to go outside right now. You better get up because I said so. I was actually flexible. And so then once I got him to go outside, or once I redirected his attention, I would talk to him when we were outside. I would say, see how much fun we're having. But if you tell me no, it will take more time and we can't have fun. You understand? And I noticed that every time I would speak to him, once he was calm, he would reason with me and say, well, Miss Carolyn, I really was tired and I wanted to put my head down. And I would tell him, hey, the next time you want to do that, say, Miss Carolyn, I really don't want to go outside right now. Do you mind if I go lay down in another classroom? Talk to me and tell me, because I will give you some options and let you know what's going on. And so I had to learn to not focus so much on what I wanted, but what my children needed in the classroom. And sometimes as teachers, we're so dictating that we need to redirect our attention to the children that are in the classroom so that we can redirect their attention to something else whenever an issue does come up. So, redirecting attention is so important, not just for the child, but for the teacher as well. Some more examples of that. Like, I had a kid that refused to go, did not like to go to the potty. And he was like, I'm not going to go into that potty. I will hold it. I'm not going to go. And so, instead of like forcing him and making him go, I would say, hey, do you want to come over here and put this sticker on the chart? Let's talk about some of the importance of going to the potty. And I would talk to him about it. I'll say, now, do you need my help? Do you want me to go in there with you? And by the time I took the focus on making him go to the potty and redirecting him to something else and actually being able to explain and talk to him, he was ready to go. And then even if he wasn't, I would tell him, hey, you don't want to have an accident. You want to make sure that you go home with this sticker on your chart. And then he would be so focused on the sticker that he's like, yes, I do want to get a sticker. Yes, I do need you to watch me go potty. And so a lot of times, if you just get the kids' attention off the task that you're trying to push them to do, you will prevent them from going into a tantrum. And even if you redirect their mind once they're in a tantrum, you will keep them from being in that tantrum for a long period of time. So, number three, redirect their attention. So, we're going to stay calm. We're going to get to the root of the problem and find out what's going on and try to kill that tantrum before it even occurs. And then once they're in a tantrum or they're leading up to the tantrum, we're going to try to redirect our attention and redirect their attention so that the tantrum can either stop or never occur in the situation. All right. So then number four is going to be positive reinforcement. A lot of times when we deal with a kid with a tantrum, our frustration is so high that we're just like, oh, let me just get them up and sit them in this corner. Let me just put them over here, just get them out the way. And we start to punish them for having that tantrum for an extended amount of time. And sometimes even until the next day, we're like, all right, don't you start that tantrum stuff. Like, who said anything about a tantrum today? You're the one that brought it up as a teacher. You're the one putting that thought in their mind. So what you have to do is show them the positive effects of not having a tantrum. Tell them the rewards. If you do this instead of this is what you're going to get. But if you choose to do a tantrum, I'm going to let you calm down, but then I'm going to talk to you. And if the child is coming out the tantrum sooner than they did before, we need to use some positive redirections to um affirm that they have done something great. So if you have a child that used to throw a tantrum and throw chairs and be all on the floor, but then all of a sudden they started coming out of the tantrum when you're giving them, when you're counting for them, or when you're trying to redirect them, you want to say, you know what, amazing job. I know you were upset, but can you believe that you were only upset for just a little bit of time this time? And I want to show you some things that you can actually do the next time so that you don't have a tantrum at all. And so, if we're positive about it and really coaching the kids, we're like their cheerleader. And in childcare, we just need to become magical again. And if we can get our mind on being that happy cheerleader for that child, that positive encourager, then it will shift not only the atmosphere and the children's mindset, but it will actually shift our mindset as well. But a lot of times we're so drained and we're so tired, and the kids are just not listening and they're just doing too much. And so we're tired. And so we cannot provide that positive reinforcement because we're not positive. The very core of our heart and soul is just tired, burnt out, and non magical anymore. And so that is what starts to happen over a period of time when teachers have burnout. But what we need to do is we need to get back into the place of being that inspiration, being magical for children, being their inspiration, and giving them positive reinforcement. And I'm not going to sit here and act like it's easy. Oh my goodness, is it not easy? Because let me tell you something. One thing you're going to realize when you come to my trainings is I'm real. I am so real. And I know these children are a little bit extra these days. They lack so many skills, and it makes it so hard for us as early providers to be positive, to reinforce that, because we're not just dealing with one or two, sometimes three, four, and five of them are in a classroom, and it can be so frustrating. But I guarantee you, if you're consistent about being positive for the kids that you're working with, you're going to see a total transformation amongst your classroom. And you say, hey, Carolyn, how do I get back to that positive place? How do I get back to understanding that they are just mere children and I am supposed to be here to really shift their lives and change them? Well, you have to get back to the core or the heart of why you're in it. You see, when I started to remember why I became an early childhood professional, then my attitude towards kids started to change. I got in this to impact kids' lives in a positive way. And at this moment, if I do not stay calm and be positive, I'm actually doing what I said I was going to get in early childhood to change. And if you're here, this is not just a job for you. You would not be on this training figuring out how to tackle tantrums if this was not your cup of tea. This is your cup of tea. You just need to be revitalized, rejuvenated, so that you can get back excited about being positive for kids. But is every day going to be easy? No. And sometimes you need a timeout. And not the kids, you as an early childhood professional needs a timeout. And I used to do this thing. I used to be like, woosah, woosah. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to deal with this child. But sometimes I have to get myself in check. I got to get my feelings in check so that I can be positive for the kids. And we're not taking that time for ourselves to be positive, to get ourselves in check before we deal with the kids. We're being reactive instead of proactive. We're allowing that tantrum to get us in a bad place instead of saying, okay, this is my opportunity to stop this child from having a life full of tantrums and getting into a situation that they cannot get out of. I have that power right now as an early childhood professional to positively impact this child's life and shift the narrative for them for a lifetime. You can change that by giving them positive enforcement and reminding them that they are not the tantrum. The tantrum is just the behavior. They're an intelligent child. They're bright and they can make amazing decisions. And you need their help. I need for you to make better decisions. And here is what you're going to do, or here is how you can make those better decisions. But positive reinforcement starts with us. I can tell you all day long, here are some kind words that you can say to children. But even the kindest of vocabulary, if they don't have good intentions, it's going to sound bad to the child. Have you ever, I love you. Ugh. If somebody says it like that, you don't seem like you love me. Good job. Oh, that doesn't sound like I did a good job. So if the emotions, the inner part of that is not positive, no matter what you say or what vocabulary you use, it's not going to come out in a positive way unless you are being intentional about being positive with the words that you are using. That's why, saying I'm sorry sometimes with kids is not a way to positively redirect them, because all it is making them, rehash the situation and say things that they really don't mean. Because if they really wanted to apologize or really felt remorse or empathy in the situation, then they would go up to that child and try to rub them and take care of them and help them to show that they are empathetic or they're sorry. And we have used that word so much in early childhood education that we I'm sorry, say you're sorry, say you're sorry. And it has no meaning behind it. We're not actually em- choosing empathy or showing them empathy in these situations. And so make sure when you're using the positive reinforcement that it's coming from a positive place. Because kids know when you don't mean it. They know when you have an attitude, or you're just saying it because you know your director is listening, or you're just saying it because you don't want to get in trouble, or you know other people are listening. It needs to come from a positive place, or that child is not going to receive it, and they're going to learn themselves how to say things that they really don't mean, and it's not going to have that positive effect on them. Yes, they are. They are a great reader of energy, very much so. And your tone, like Kat said, speaks volumes to them. How you say it is everything. I mean, I could say things all day long, but if I don't have that or that excitement behind it, people are going to take those words and they're going to mean nothing to them. So you have to make sure that it's coming from a positive place. And I know I'm going to be the first one to admit it is difficult, especially if you are having a hard time outside of the early childhood setting, at home with your own kids, and then now you're dealing with these children at school. Oh, you could be in a place, especially if you had a rough morning. That's why you have to go and get yourself into a positive manner before dealing with children who are throwing these tantrums, or you can rub them the wrong way and then the relationship is 100% ruined from there. All right. I need for you guys to do number 5 and teach self. Teach emotional development. Teach about themselves and handling their self to them. But my favorite saying that I say all the time: emotionally incompetent teachers cannot build emotionally competent children. I'll say that again. Emotionally incompetent teachers cannot build emotionally competent children. So while you need to teach self, you need to learn self. Self is being aware of your own emotions, being able to articulate them, being able to express them, acknowledge them. So many times we don't acknowledge anger. We don't acknowledge sadness. We don't acknowledge frustration. But we expect children to know how to deal with them. Even in ourselves, take a second and ask yourself, do I deal with frustration in a positive way, or do I throw a tantrum? Do I deal with anger in an appropriate way, or do I throw a tantrum? Do I deal with sadness in an appropriate way, or do I throw a tantrum? And some of you are sitting there probably laughing or going, ooh, yeah. Because if you don't have it together, you definitely can't teach it to children because they're going to see it in you. When they push your button and make you mad and you have an attitude and you start popping off, guess what? You've just given them permission to throw a tantrum. So not only do you need to teach self, but you need to learn self. Here's what I'm going to do in my classroom when a child makes me angry. Here's what I'm going to do in my classroom when a child frustrates me. Here's what I'm going to do in a classroom when a child irritates me. Here's what I'm going to do in the classroom when a child is just annoying to me. And if you don't learn self, it's going to be hard for you to maintain an attitude that is positive when dealing with the child and teaching them how to learn self and communicate their emotions. There are so many things that you can do to prevent tantrums before the tantrum actually happens. And one of the number one things that you can do to prevent tantrums and tackle tantrums before they happen is to talk about tantrums in your circle time, in your small group lesson, and talk about the feelings that lead to these tantrums. We want to read all the books, all the fun books, but we really need to sit down with children and have this conversation about how we handle our emotions. We don't do it enough. No matter how many math problems you can solve, no matter how many times you can, how many colors or numbers you know, the fact that you throw a tantrum where you're throwing things, knocking things over, and hurting people, you cannot excel in the public education or private education if you are acting like that, no matter how much information you know. So why is it do we spend so much time in our lesson plans on number, shapes, colors, reading, and writing, but we don't spend enough time or hardly any time on building self and talking about emotions in our small group and large group lesson? Last night in my CDA class, I talked about whole child. And a lot of times in an early childhood field, we give them that language, we give them the communication, we give them the cognitive skills, we give them the physical development, fine motor and gross motor. We even give them a little bit of that creative activity piece. But when it comes to social skills and emotional skills, a lot of times those get kind of like shoved in the back when they are essential skills for kids to be able to cope in public school. This is why a lot of our kids struggle when they get to school, is because they lack those social and emotional skills. And we can tackle a lot of issues if we just sit down and talk about emotions and self with 18-month-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, all the way up. And a lot of times, and I see the game plan, to talk about the game plan over there and tackling these. You already know the children in your classroom. You already know what triggers them. You already know what sets them off. So why not address it when they're cool and they're calm and they're collective before the tantrum actually blows out of the water? We want to talk to the kid while they're in the tantrum. It's too late. Let me tell you something. I'm going to explain something very clear to you guys. And you have to remember that children are just mini versions of us. They're just replicas of us. When I'm upset, I hear nothing. As a matter of fact, my ears start burning when I'm upset. Nothing you can say or do is going to change how I'm feeling right then. But then after I calm down, I start to listen and hear what the person is saying. Well, the same thing goes for a kid. You cannot teach them in the midst of the storm. Their ears are burning. They're upset. Imagine you being enraged and someone trying to tell you what you need to do. You don't want to hear it. I know I don't want to hear it. And I know a lot of kids don't want to hear it. So when we're tackling those tantrums, you have to take time to teach those emotional skills. And sometimes that's done one on one. Spending that one on one time with that child. I had two kids that are well known for tantrums at my school. Like, if I even put their initials in the chat and some of my teachers were on here, they'll be like, I knew who you're talking about before you started. And I was intentional when I was their pre-K and kindergarten teacher with spending time with them to talk about their self, their emotions, and what leads them to feel that way. Sometimes I would let them sit down in a chair and just scream it out. And when they were done, hey, come over so we could talk about this. So tell me what made you upset. Okay, so what can we do next time to prevent that from happening? You know, Miss Carolyn feels upset sometimes too. Sometimes I throw a tantrum. You want to see me throw a tantrum? And they're like, no. Okay, you don't want to see me throw a tantrum, and I don't like seeing you throw a tantrum. I want you to be happy. So let's talk about some ways to make you happy. But guess what? There's going to be some times that you don't want to do things, and you're going to feel upset. And when you start feeling that, instead of screaming and throwing yourself, I want you to use this ball and I want you to squeeze. Or I want you to close your eyes and I want you to count to 5. Give them some coping mechanisms that they can use when they feel that anger and that frustration start to boil up. And making them aware of these emotions will help them to be able to identify when that trigger sets it off and to be able to put their own fire out before it starts being this big fire. Being aware of yourself as a teacher and helping the child be aware of themselves when they're upset is how you're going to tackle and wrangle in some of these tantrums. And if you're an administrator on the call, I want you to just observe for a second what's going on with these kids before the tantrum, during the tantrum, after the tantrum, so that you can give teachers appropriate feedback about their interactions, their facial expressions, so that they will know exactly what they can work on to better help tackle that tantrum. Because a lot of times it's just really working with the teacher, and the teacher can transform that. I know a lot of you guys are on the comments and saying, some of the things that you're doing in the classroom. And the ones who are on here saying all the things that they're doing in the classrooms are the ones who know how to tackle tantrums, are the ones who don't really deal with the tantrums as much as other teachers. It's the ones that's not on this tackling tantrum call that needs to be here listening on how to wrangle in some of these emotions and feelings. So it's all of these things combined into one. We know what's triggering them. We can see it. We can diffuse it before it gets to this point. Now, number 6. Oh, look at Ms. Carolyn. She didn't change the number to 6. It's not supposed to be 5, but it is 6. 6, teach communication. So now that we've identified how we're feeling and what's triggering us, how do we communicate that? Ms. Carolyn, I'm mad. I'm angry. And so my favorite thing you don't have the right to be mad. You don't pay no bills around here. When the last time you cooked? You don't have to clean up this classroom. You don't have to watch all these kids, so you don't have the right to be mad. Sad. Your mama just went to work. She's going to come right back. What are you crying for? You don't have a right to be sad, but you may not know. They may have lost someone, or someone may have died in their family they seen one day and didn't see the next day, so their parents disappearing or going to work, they don't know if they're going to see them again. So being able to communicate, you're upset, giving the kids the power to say that they're angry. Do your children have the power to say that they're angry, or you made me mad, or I'm sad? Do we teach them how to communicate that? And the answer is no. We shut them down before they even begin to talk about how they feel. As a matter of fact, sometimes we don't even ask. We tell them, oh, you're mad? No, I might not be mad. I might be frustrated. I may be hot. I may be, bothered. Or a child may be doing something to me that you didn't see. Ask questions and empower children to use their words and don't speak for them. Oh, are you sad? Oh, I know you're sad. No, I'm not sad. Then why are you crying? You shouldn't be crying if you're not sad. Maybe I'm crying because I'm frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. I'm scared. I'm scared to be here at this school because I don't know anyone and my mom just left me and she's all I know. Fear. People cry for more than just being sad. So you have to ask the right questions, teach them the words to use, show them the different facial expressions when they're 1.5, they're 2 years old, so that they know exactly what's going on. My nephew now, he does this thing, and when he looks at me, he's like, and I'm like, what you making that face for? And I'm like, are you angry? And so he's like making this face at me whenever I look at him. And he's showing me like, don't look at me. I don't want you to look at me. And I'm like, oh, what is that face all about? And I was like, that's an angry face. If you're not angry and you're happy to see me, you need to smile. But if you're mad and don't want to see me, and then he just started looking, he's like, and then he started smiling because he's happy. But somewhere along the way, he learned that face and he just wants to show it to everybody because he just learned it. So then I started to teach him how to communicate his feelings with his facial expressions since he doesn't have the words as of yet. So we have to talk to kids. We have to ask the right question. We have to teach them to communicate and we have to learn to be effective communicators. My favorite thing is the but why. But why? But why? But why? And we don't want to answer the whys. We do not want to answer the whys. And so taking that communication piece out is going to keep kids from expressing exactly how they feel. So overall, we're staying calm. We're getting to the root of the problem. We're actually giving them positive feedback, positive encouragement. We are teaching themselves. We're redirecting their attention, and we are teaching them how to communicate. And all of these things will help wrangle in and tackle those tantrums. So I am going to go over to the question section, the Q&A. I'm going to go back because I see a lot of good questions over here. And I'm going to try to position it in a way that we can actually read it. Come on. This is Miss Rebecca. I'm trying to position it in a way that we could actually read it. Oh, I wish you guys could actually see. She says, I actually take many behavior trainings because my son is on the spectrum and decided to incorporate it into my classroom. And just like you, they put all the behaviors in one room. So a lot of times in the early childhood field, they put all the kids who act up in the same room because that's the teacher that can handle them. They put them in there because the teacher is the only one that will work with them, help them out, all of the above. And so, just like Miss Rebecca said, a lot of the techniques that you need are built into special needs training. But it's just so sad that we do not give our general education teachers those tools that they need because general ed kids need those same things that children on the spectrum need. And so a lot of times you find that a lot of difficult kids are in the same classroom because that teacher is the only one who can deal with them and handle them. And so, what I would really encourage you guys to do is to look into some ABA training for your teachers and really get them to understand how to cope with children with behavior issues. And remember this, a lot of kids that are in your environment that are 1 and 2 and sometimes 3 are undiagnosed as of yet. The parent has not gotten them the help or the diagnosis that they actually need. And autism is not diagnosed until the age of 3, even though you can tell a child is on the spectrum when they're 1 and 2 years of age. So a lot of times that goes unsaw whenever you are dealing with kids in a classroom. Um, they are on the spectrum. They do have special needs, but the parent has not given them the tools that they actually need. So then we have Kat right here. She says, your tone speaks volumes to children. It does, Kat. And that that is something that I've always said, is that if you do not use the appropriate tone with kids, then you're asking for trouble because they're going to be able to read that. All right. So, Kat says, it's harder to redirect the child when you're angry and upset with the child because of their actions. And that's true because your frustration is going to, now you're dealing with being able to control yourself. And guys, that is how kids get hurt in early education. They get hurt simply because a teacher cannot control her emotions. So she goes and she grabs that kid. But if you stay calm and get yourself centered and in check, you will reduce that child being injured and you being in a situation where you're hurting or doing something to a kid that's unacceptable. So, Miss Peggy, basically have a game plan for those situations, but first you have to know your own triggers. Yes, this is an exercise. Miss Peggy, I don't know if you're an administrator or not, but an exercise that I would actually do. I'm gonna I'm going to answer your question, Miss Peggy. I see it in here. I'm going to get to that. But basically, you need to do an exercise with your teachers. And this is something that can be done in a staff meeting or one on one. Ask your teachers, what are those behaviors that trigger you? Have the teacher start listing them out. Then, next to it, have them write, what is something that they can do instead of getting angry when they feel or they see that in their classroom. So now, as an administrator, you're training your teacher to identify their triggers and have coping mechanism. Then what they can do is go and teach the children to do the exact thing. One thing that I believe in my training is that you have to train the way you want teachers to teach. If you want teachers to yell at kids, point at them, and talk to them, 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 that's the way you'll teach them. But by doing some of these exercises with your teachers, you're actually giving them the tools that they need to be able to teach the kids those same things that they're being taught. And mind you, a lot of teachers only teach the way that they have taught when they are in okay, the way that they are taught in a classroom. So a lot of times whenever you have a preschool teacher that comes from a different environment, and we assume they've been in it for 10 or 15 years and so they should know exactly what to do. No, they don't. What they do is teach the way they were either taught or they saw someone teach because they didn't have formal training. And what we have to do in the early childhood field is give teachers the tools that they need to be able to teach the appropriate way and not assume that they know exactly how to teach. So even being a supportive teacher, you can go in, Miss Peggy, with your co-teacher and say, hey, I noticed that some things bother me. How about we do this exercise together and figure out what's triggering us and find our coping mechanisms so that now we can help the children identify their trigger and give them the coping mechanism. So even if you're a co-teacher or you are a support staff, you can help encourage other teachers to find these things. So I'm going to go over, I know it's going to be small, but I'm going to read this from Kat. She says, I had a child who would throw tantrums when it was time to clean centers and rotate. So to avoid that whole meltdown, I gave the child a countdown for him to be aware it was almost time to clean up. It worked better than saying, okay, time to clean up, and he had to mess up his whole blocks he built. So that is true. Just like us, we don't like surprises. We need to have transitional signals for kids, especially kids who do their temperament does not go easy. Like they have to be prepared and know what's going on. They don't like to be interrupted. They need enough time to be able to do things. And if you work with them and help them and understand their temperaments, it will work so much better than to just be like, oh, it's over. I said so. Let's just move on to this next thing. We don't like that as an adult. So, let alone a child liking that whenever you're interrupting their play. It says it's interesting that we offer after school programs like sports ball. Why not a class addressing emotions? Huh, my same question. It is a piece that's out there that deals with emotional intelligence. It is a lot of research on emotional intelligence that you can incorporate into your program, and that is a wonderful idea. And actually, I encourage that we have that built into our curriculum. When I wrote curriculum, that was a piece that I incorporated into the curriculum that I wrote for our school and for other schools is being on our best behavior, identifying emotions, and putting those pieces as a part of your circle time every single day to address. So there is a lot of programs. Yeah, there are some emotional based programs. It's called emotional intelligence, and you can actually get on Teacher Pay Teacher. You can get on Pinterest, and there's a lot of activities that deal with emotional intelligence. We just have to seek them out and try to get them in as many programs as we can. All right, I'm going to go into some of the comments. I have some that are saying teaching meditation and breathing techniques, yes, for the teacher and for the kid. And so a lot of times that meditation, that yoga, that practice, teachers are teaching that, but they need to learn that so that they can properly teach it to kids. Having a safe place in a classroom for calming down. Relaxation Island is a good place. Having a rocking chair or a soothing place or a me, myself, and I center, a me, myself, and I space, a crawl hole that they can go into. Sometimes we just need to be alone. And I say that all the time, like, I just need my space. Like, I just need my think time. I just need for everyone to just get out of my way for a second so I can think properly. And a lot of times kids get embarrassed. That's why they throw tantrums. And so sometimes they do need that space that they can crawl into or go back into so that they can think, react, and not have all eyes on them, waiting for them to respond to a redirection. Yeah, understanding that kids are so different. Thank you, Miss Rebecca. And it's not enough people teaching that. That's teaching that children are individuals, and you can address behavior as a whole, but you gotta spend that one-on-one time with children. You have to. And you have to understand the way you teach them is the way that they're going to react and learn. And as a trainer, the way I teach you is the way that you're going to go back and act with your kids. So if I, as your trainer, have an attitude and telling you not to do this or just giving you tips that I've never implemented, you're going to be like, okay, there's no value in that. Or you're going to try to implement them and they're not going to work. Learning emotions with mirrors are great to learn facial expression and how to express themselves and giving them the ability to be able to talk about this. But, guys, at the end of the day, no matter what question you have, it all boils down to are you, as the educator, really equipping yourself to be able to deal with different emotions from children. And children do what they see. So you don't know at home if they're in a situation where they're seeing a lot of anger, frustration, throwing things, breaking things, or is it that that is just a response? No one taught me how to be angry. It is just something that just comes out naturally. But if someone had taught me how to be angry and how to express that, I think when I started to feel those boiling feelings, I would have got them under control and expressed myself appropriately as opposed to throwing things. And so, whenever there's a lack of communication, then people dive into action. This is why people pull out guns and shoot, because they don't have the words. Their words are not powerful enough to hurt that person, so they try to inflict pain on them. But if we all learn how to express that and not let that feeling overcome us, then we can also teach that to young children so that they know how to regulate those emotions as well. Yes, there are a lot of songs out there, even on YouTube, about emotions. Yeah, what you're saying is the key to everything. Like even adults, and I teach people this, like it's all in your face. And when you're talking to someone, they know that you're serious. And here's the thing, like anybody that's worked with me know this. I can't hold a grudge. Like I forget because what I say is what I say and what I mean is what I say. So if I have an issue, I address it immediately and tell you how I think, and then the water is off my back and we back cool again because I've already expressed what I've had to say. But what happens is people hold on to these emotions and then they have these attitudes and then they go into their classroom with the attitudes. But what I learned a long time ago as a preschool teacher is that you express it, you receive it, you process it as soon as possible, and then that way you can move on to the next level in life. You have exactly speaking to them at their level. Basically, the way that you want your boss to speak to you is the way that you should speak to children. And I say that all the time. Would you like it if I came in your classroom yelling at you and talking crazy to you? No, you wouldn't. So why do we think it's okay for us to do that to little people? And some of us even do that to our colleagues. Just talk to them any kind of way because they're an assistant teacher or because they're not a lead and all these things. We have to learn how to communicate positively with each other, with our colleagues, as well as the children that we serve. But a lot of times, the way we talk to kids is the way we talk to other people. And that is why kids behave the way they behave. They're just reflections of us. They're just like little reflections of us. Reflections of what we taught them, reflections of what we didn't teach them, reflections of the things that we addressed and the things that we did not address. I don't like people talking down to me, so I don't talk down to people. I am not, condescending to children. I talk to them the way that I would want someone who was in power to talk to me when they're giving me correction. Oh, is that the way we're going to act today? Oh, I don't think that that fits in today's plan. Let's talk about some ways that we can act appropriately. Talking with them, to them, not at them, is going to be key to tackling some of these tantrums. And again, I ask you, my friend, as an adult, are you still throwing tantrums? What are you doing when you're upset? And if you tackle some of those issues, we can get to the root of why we have so many issues in the classroom. And if all 20 people that had registered for this training was on this live and hearing this, that is just 20 more classrooms we would have transformed for tomorrow. And imagine those 20 people reaching out to 20 other teachers. One teacher, that's 40 teachers. We can transform childcare. We can make it back a magical place again. We don't have to have it a place where people are hating or regretting to go to work. We can bring that excitement and magic back, and it starts with us. It starts with us and really teaching each other how to appropriately deal and handle kids and having that self check, putting ourselves in check before we go into the classroom. Embarrassment. Kat talked to embarrassment, and I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. Calling kids out and putting them on the spot. That's not okay. There's a situation that's going on, and it's really making me sad. It's happening in another state, and I'm consulting with one of my friends on it. And it's a kid who is on the spectrum, and they want him to stand and apologize to the whole entire class because of something that he said, something that he didn't even know was wrong and that he didn't even mean. And if he had known it was wrong, he probably wouldn't have said it. But to humiliate him because a few kids got their feelings hurt in front of the whole entire class is unacceptable. What happened to tolerance? What happened to not making a child feel less than? Because I tell you this, a lot of times what we do to children, if someone had done to us, we would be upset. Or better yet, some of us were dealt with like that and it didn't feel good. And it's the only way we know how to handle children. But it needs to change. Just because it happened to you and just because your teacher did it to you does not make it acceptable, does not make it okay for you to do that to other children. Embarrassment is not the key. So I am going to open it up to anyone that's on here, any viewers that have any specific questions about tantrums or issues that they're having in their classroom before I go to the last slide. And guys, you guys are so amazing for sharing these comments in here, for giving the feedback, encouraging one another. Peggy, I really appreciate you being here as an assistant teacher, getting the tips and things that you need for your classroom. Kat, as an administrator, I thank you so much for showing up and constantly pouring into yourself to become better at what you do. Rebecca, you're always showing up and showing out, and the 20 years of being in early childhood, I congratulate you so much for every day that you show up and provide for kids and still go home and provide for your son, even though he's having those difficulties as well. So kudos to you guys. Thank you, Danielle, so much for showing up tonight and the comments that you're giving here, because guys, this is your own personal time that you're coming out and you're doing this training to become better at what you do. And sometimes you know these things, it's just a reminder on how to better do them in a classroom, or a reminder or a refresher on what you need to tell other teachers. Because just because you know it is not common, there is no common sense in childcare. We don't all think the same way. We don't all have the same sense because we were all raised differently. We were all trained differently. We are all from different environments. And so nothing is common. So I appreciate you guys so much for taking time out of your busy day to come here to learn more about handling children. So all that's doing is causing an issue and putting that child on blast and transferring the responsibility. So bringing the kid to you, Rebecca, and saying, oh, he hit, he bit. Okay, what do you want me to do? I can't do anything that you can't do. So talk to that child. This is your teacher. Your teacher is going to go back and talk to you about your behavior because they cannot do anything you can't do. I used to always tell a teacher, you brought them to me. What can I do that you can't do? Oh, well, they listen to you better. That's a problem. You need to find your voice so that they can listen to you better. And it doesn't mean screaming at them. It doesn't mean getting louder or more aggressive or meaner. All it means is being clear in your expectation and staying consistent with it. And you will see a transformation happen with that child. So now when kids are like, oh, I'm going to go get Miss Carolyn. No, you're not, because Miss Carolyn is not coming. You're going to deal with this child, and I'm going to teach you how to deal with them, because I am not going to be able to follow that child for the rest of their life and be their disciplinary. They have to learn how to respect adults, no matter who that adult is, and don't give them respect the person by bringing them to me and telling them that I am the God of behavior, discipline, and guidance. I'm not. I'm no different than you. You just have to find your voice and learn how to be patient and understand that that child is going to see you as authoritative if you take that role. They lose all respect for you. Once you tell them Miss Carolyn is coming, Miss Carolyn is now their teacher. You're no longer their teacher. And more teachers need to hear that. Send them to the office doesn't solve the problem. All it does is transfer the issue. And then you lose the respect. But yet you have to deal with that child every day. It's not okay. Not okay. All right. Any questions? I'm going to keep my eye on the chat, but I am going to go to the last slide. And our last slide is upcoming events. Guys, I am so excited. Like I said, we just moved into a new studio. I'm going to see if I can give you guys a round of oh my goodness. It is like crazy in here and we are getting set up. We just moved in and we're going to have a workshop area that we're going to do live workshops, not just the hot topics. And so I do want to say hot topics are a podcast format where we're talking and live, but I am going to be doing some other type of lives with hands-on activities, more curriculum activities, classroom activities, and different things like that. So let me move this over. So we do have a couple of things that are coming up. Guys, next week is the week of the young child. I am so excited. No, it's not the first, it's the 30th. Not the first, not the first. But on Friday, you guys got the date. Friday, I am going to be doing a kickoff for the Week of the Young Child, just showing you guys some things that you can do to celebrate the Week of the Young Child. I am going to go live every day at 5 o'clock, the 3rd through the 7th, to talk about the topic and to do an activity with you guys on the Week of the Young Child. And the reason why I'm going to kick it off on Friday is because I want to kind of show you guys some of the things that I'm going to be doing next week and incorporating and talking about, and even some things that you can share with your parents to celebrate. So it is going to kind of kick off before. So I'm going to try to start Friday for the 3rd and then 3rd. Do it a day ahead so that you guys are prepared for the next topic. So that's why I'm kicking off on Friday, which is the 30th, not the 1st. I thought Friday was the 1st. My days are really off these days. So Week of the Young Child. Then on April the 15th, which is a Saturday, we are going to be at the Hyatt Hotel here in Houston, Texas for our Super Saturday from 9 to 4. We have a Super Saturday workshop the 15th and the 6th of May. This is a whole day workshop. We provide snacks, breakfast, make and takes, and it is a hands-on workshop. I will try to film it to get some pieces of it to share on our Facebook page, but don't worry if you're from a different state, because we're going to have a POW virtual workshop on April the 16th, where I'm going to be bringing in one of my friends who's Wonder Woman, and we're going to talk about, we're going to have this virtual training that's on that you guys are going to be able to register for. I am going to put the link on our page and have some things posted, but I do want to kind of go over these upcoming events. So then we are going to have a virtual boot camp May 19th through the 21st. It is a 3-day workshop. It is going to be all virtual, opt in, and I'm so excited. We tried to launch it late last year, but we were still transitioning and figuring out this virtual thing, and now we're ready for our 3-day boot camp that is going to be May 19th through the 21st. And so if you're out of town and you want to see me live and in person, I would put in your time off for November the 17th through the 19th, because we're going to be doing Toots Camp. And it is a camping / slumber party retreat for teachers. They always have director retreats. They always have admin retreats, but I want to do a camp out slumber party for early childhood professionals. And we have the campsites, which is Camp Allen. It is already booked and ready for us to go. And we're going to check in on Friday night, Stay there all day Saturday, and then on Sunday evening is going to be, Sunday morning is going to be a workshop, and you guys are going to be able to check out. It is going to be a night under the stars collaboration. Teachers are going to be able to stay in bunk beds, and so we rented out the whole campground to do this camp training you to succeed slumber party for early childhood teachers. And guys, I am like so excited about this. We just closed the deal on it, and it's Camp Allen up in Nacogdoches, Texas, and we have the whole campground for the weekend to do s'mores, to do team building activities, to kind of rejuvenate our teachers and bring that sparkle back to them. And so these are our upcoming things. You guys are going to see us posted. I know flying all the way from New York is going to be hard, but if you guys can make it happen and can fit it into your early childhood budget, I would love to see you at Camp Toots for that 3-day retreat. It's going to start Friday evening, all day Saturday, and Sunday morning, and we will be done about noon on Sunday, which gives teachers enough time to get back home, rejuvenate, and get ready for Monday. So thank you guys so much, as usual, for the live. I really enjoy doing these, you guys. I really do. It gets me back connected to the early childhood field, and it is a pleasure to show up for you guys on Tuesdays. And we're going to be adding more to our lineup for you guys. We're going to be doing more workshops and spend more time on building this community. So if you have coworkers who need to hear this, share this live with them. Get them on the next one. Have them watch it with you. Have a popcorn party and sit in front of it. Sit in front of your screen and cast it up there for everybody to watch and enjoy. This is so that I can rejuvenate the early childhood field and pour back into our teachers. So share this information with them. Let them know our upcoming events. If you can't make it to us in person, I'm trying to balance that with virtual events as well, so that you can get the best of both worlds. So again, thank you guys so much. Oh, send you information on the camp. Yes, we are going to be launching that registration coming up in the next couple of weeks. And Rebecca, I will make sure to tag you in it and get you the information on our Camp Toots, and then also on all of our virtual activities as well. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me for this live. I will pay attention to some of the comments even after it goes off, because I know you guys are a little bit delayed behind me with it. But again, thanks so much for joining me. It was a pleasure seeing you guys tonight.